The Crossroads. Chapter 1. The Road. Thomas Gray walked slowly along the narrow road. His boots were covered in mud, and his coat was heavy with damp air. The fog around him was thick and cold. It moved like smoke, hiding the trees and hills. He could not see far ahead, but he kept walking. He did not know where the road would lead, but he felt he had to follow it. He had been walking for days. His legs were tired and his back ached. But he did not stop. He had no home to return to. He had left everything behind, his job, his family, his past. He carried only a small bag and a worn journal. The journal was full of names, places, and thoughts he could not forget. He had made many mistakes in his life. Some were small. Others had changed everything. Now he was searching for something he could not name. A place to rest. A reason to begin again. The road was old and cracked. Grass grew between the stones. Sometimes he passed broken fences or empty fields. Birds did not sing. The wind was quiet. It was as if the world had paused. Thomas liked the silence. It gave him space to think. He remembered faces from long ago. He remembered words he wished he had never said. He remembered the day he walked away from everything. As the sun began to set, the fog turned orange and gold. The light made the road look soft and strange. Then, through the mist, he saw something ahead. It was a crossroads. He stopped and looked around. There were no signs, no houses, no people. Just four roads meeting in the middle of nowhere. One road came from the south, the one he had followed. The other three stretched into the fog, each one disappearing into the unknown. The ground at the center of the crossroads was flat and bare. No grass grew there. It looked like no one had passed through in a long time. Thomas stood still. He felt something strange in the air. It was not fear, but something close. A quiet pressure, like the moment before a storm. He looked down each road. They all seemed the same, but something told him they were not. Each one had its own feeling. One felt cold. One felt heavy. One felt empty. He could not explain it, but he knew this place was not ordinary. He sat down near the center of the crossroads. His legs were shaking. He took off his coat and placed it on the ground. He opened his bag and took out a piece of bread and a small bottle of water. He ate slowly, watching the sky grow darker. The stars began to appear, one by one. The fog lifted a little, and the air grew colder. He looked at the roads again. He wondered where they led. He wondered if anyone had ever stood here before, unsure of which way to go. He thought about turning back, but he knew he couldn't. There was nothing behind him. Only memories and pain. He decided to stay the night. He gathered some dry grass and made a small fire. The flames were weak, but they gave him comfort. He wrapped himself in his coat and lay down beside the fire. The ground was hard, but he was too tired to care. He looked up at the stars and listened to the wind. As he closed his eyes, he felt something shift. The air grew still. The fog stopped moving. The silence became deeper. It was as if the world was waiting. Thomas did not know it yet, but the crossroads was not just a place. It was a test. A place where choices mattered. A place where the past could not follow, and the future had not yet begun. And so, under the cold sky of County Kerry, Thomas Gray fell asleep at the edge of something greater than he could imagine. Chapter 2. Strangers. The morning came slowly. The fog still hung in the air, soft and pale, like a blanket over the land. Thomas Gray opened his eyes and sat up. His small fire had gone out, and the ground was cold beneath him. He rubbed his hands together and looked around. The crossroads was quiet, just as it had been the night before. But something had changed. 3 figures now stood at the edge of the crossroads. They had appeared without sound, without footsteps, without warning. Each one stood at a different road, as if guarding it. They did not move. They did not speak. But they watched Thomas with calm, steady eyes. The first figure stood at the northern path. She was a woman dressed in dark clothes, simple but clean. Her name was Mary Ann Blake. Her hair was tied back, and her face was calm. Her eyes were soft, full of peace, but also full of something deeper, like she had seen many things and accepted them all. She stood with her hands folded in front of her, as if waiting for something or someone. Her presence felt warm, but also heavy, like a memory that never left. The second figure stood at the western path. He was an older man, tall and thin, with a long coat and a cane. His name was Edgar Finch. His face was lined with age, and his eyes were sharp. He looked at Thomas with a gaze that seemed to see through him. It was not cruel, but it was strong. Edgar looked like someone who had carried secrets for a long time. His posture was straight, but his shoulders seemed tired. He gave off a feeling of wisdom, but also warning. The third figure stood at the eastern path. He was different. His name was Leo, though Thomas did not know that yet. Leo's age was impossible to guess. His face was pale and quiet, and his eyes were hard to describe. They were not cold, but they were distant. His clothes were simple, almost faded. He did not move at all. His presence was strange. Thomas felt something shift when he looked at him, like time slowed down. Leo's face was hard to remember, even while looking at it. He seemed like a shadow, or a thought that slipped away. Thomas stood slowly and looked at each of them. None of them spoke. None of them made a sound. But each of them seemed to be waiting. Not for a question, but for a choice. He felt something inside him stir. A quiet voice, not from outside, but from within. He understood that these people were not just strangers. They were part of the crossroads. They were part of the test. Each one stood for something. Each one guarded a path. And each path led to a different future. Mary Ann's road felt gentle, but full of sorrow. Edgar's road felt clear, but full of danger. Leo's road felt empty, but free. Thomas did not know what each path meant. But he felt their weight. He felt their truth. He did not speak. He did not ask questions. He only watched. And they watched him. The wind moved slowly through the trees. The fog began to lift. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the ground. The crossroads was still quiet, but now it felt alive. Thomas knew he could not stay in the center forever. He would have to choose. Not just a road, but a direction for his life. He would have to decide what he was ready to face, what he was ready to leave behind, and what he was ready to become. The strangers did not push him. They did not guide him. They only stood, silent and patient, as if they had all the time in the world. And Thomas Gray, tired and searching, stood at the edge of something greater than he had ever known. Chapter 3. The Trial. Thomas Gray spent the day walking slowly around the crossroads. The fog had lifted, but the air still felt heavy. The 3 strangers stood in silence, each guarding a road. They did not speak or move, but their presence shaped the space around them. Time felt strange near them. It stretched and folded, like the wind bending through the hills. Thomas felt as if he had stepped outside the world he knew. He approached Marianne first. She stood at the northern path, her hands gently folded. Her eyes were calm, but deep, like a quiet lake hiding old stories. When Thomas stood near her, he felt warmth. It reminded him of home, of soft voices and quiet evenings. But there was sadness too. A feeling of something lost long ago. He remembered his mother's voice, the way she used to sing when he was a child. He remembered the day she died, and how he had not cried. Marianne's presence made him feel that grief again, but it was gentle, not sharp. It was the kind of sadness that asked to be accepted, not avoided. Then he walked toward Edgar, who stood at the western path. Edgar's eyes were sharp, and his cane rested firmly on the ground. He looked like a man who had seen too much and forgotten too little. When Thomas stood near him, he felt clarity. His thoughts became sharp, like glass. He remembered the choices he had made, the lies, the anger, the moments when he had turned away from people who needed him. Edgar's presence was like a mirror. It showed Thomas the truth, even the parts he didn't want to see. But with that truth came fear. Not fear of punishment, but fear of facing himself. Edgar did not judge. He only revealed. Finally, Thomas stood near Leo, who guarded the eastern path. Leo's face was quiet, almost blank. His eyes were hard to read. When Thomas looked at him, he felt emptiness. Not cold, not cruel, just space. A wide, open space where nothing was decided. It was strange, but peaceful. Thomas felt like he could disappear there, not in pain, but in freedom. He remembered the times he had wanted to run away. The nights he had dreamed of starting over, far from everything. Leo's presence was like that dream. It offered no answers, only silence. Thomas sat down at the center of the crossroads. He closed his eyes and listened. The wind moved gently through the trees. The sun was high now, casting long shadows. He thought about the roads. He thought about the strangers. He thought about himself. He had made many mistakes. He had hurt people. He had walked away from love. He had chosen comfort over courage. But he had also tried. He had searched. He had walked this far. And now, he was being asked to choose again. Each stranger was more than a person. They were symbols. Marianne was memory and sorrow. Edgar was truth and fear. Leo was silence and freedom. Each road led to a different fate. One might lead to healing. One might lead to pain. One might lead to nothing at all. Thomas felt the weight of the choice. It was not just about walking forward. It was about who he wanted to become. Did he want to face his past? Did he want to carry the truth? Did he want to let go of everything? He opened his journal and read a few lines. They were messy, written in tired hands. Names, regrets, hopes. He closed the book and placed it on the ground. He looked at the 3 roads again. They were quiet, waiting. The trial was not a test of strength. It was a test of honesty. Thomas understood that now. He was not choosing a direction. He was choosing a truth. And the crossroads, silent and ancient, watched him with patience. Chapter 4. Signs. The night at the crossroads was quiet. The wind had stopped, and the fog had faded. Thomas Gray lay on the cold ground, wrapped in his coat, staring at the stars. His body was tired, but his mind was full. He had spent the day near the three strangers, feeling the weight of their presence. Now, as sleep came slowly, his thoughts drifted into dreams. In the first dream, he walked beside Marianne. The northern road stretched far into a soft, golden light. The air was warm, and the trees whispered gently. Marianne walked with calm steps, her eyes kind but distant. As they moved forward, Thomas began to see faces from his past. His mother, his brother, a friend he had lost. The road became a mirror of memory. Each step brought back a moment he had forgotten. Some were sweet. Others were painful. He tried to hold on to the good ones, but the sad ones grew stronger. He felt himself sinking into the past, unable to move forward. Marianne did not stop him. She only watched, silent and patient. In the second dream, he walked with Edgar. The western road was dark and narrow. The trees were bare, and the sky was gray. Edgar walked ahead, his cane tapping the ground. Thomas followed, feeling the air grow colder. Along the path, he saw scenes from his life, moments he had hidden from himself. He saw the lies he had told, the people he had hurt, the chances he had wasted. The road showed him everything he had tried to forget. Edgar never looked back. He kept walking, steady and strong. Thomas felt fear, but also clarity. The truth was hard, but it was real. He knew he could not change the past, but he could face it. In the third dream, he walked with Leo. The eastern road was empty. No trees, no sky, just a wide, open space. Leo walked beside him, silent as always. Thomas felt no weight, no memory, no fear. He felt free. The road had no direction, but it also had no walls. He could go anywhere. He could be anyone. As he walked, he felt himself fading, not in pain, but in peace. He was not escaping. He was letting go. Leo did not guide him. He simply stayed near, like a shadow that did not ask questions. Thomas woke with the first light of morning. The air was cold, and the ground was damp. He sat up slowly, still feeling the dreams in his chest. He looked around the crossroads. The three strangers were still there, standing at their roads, silent and still. Then he saw something new. Near each road, on the ground, lay an object. He walked to the northern path and saw a mirror. It was old, with a wooden frame and a cracked surface. When he looked into it, he saw not his face, but a memory, his younger self, smiling beside his mother. The mirror shimmered, then faded. At the western path, he found a watch. It was small and silver, ticking softly. The hands moved slowly, marking each second with care. When he held it, he felt the weight of the present moment. Not the past, not the future, just now. The watch reminded him that time was always moving, and that every second was a choice. At the eastern path, he found a stone. It was smooth and dark, with no markings. It felt warm in his hand, even in the cold morning air. The stone gave no answers, but it felt solid. It was a symbol of what could be built, of what had not yet happened. It was the future, unknown, but waiting. Thomas stood in the center of the crossroads, holding the three objects. He understood their meaning. The mirror was the past, full of memory and sorrow. The watch was the present, full of truth and weight. The stone was the future, full of silence and possibility. He could not carry them all. He would have to choose. The strangers did not speak. They did not move. But Thomas felt their eyes on him. Not with judgment, but with patience. He looked at the mirror and placed it gently on the ground. He had lived in the past long enough. He looked at the watch and set it beside the mirror. He had faced the present, but he could not stay there forever. He held the stone in his hand and felt its quiet strength. He turned toward the eastern road. And he walked. Chapter 5. The Choice. Thomas Gray stood alone in the center of the crossroads. The morning light was soft and the air was still. In his hands, he held the three objects: the mirror, the watch, and the stone. Each one felt different. Each one carried a weight that was not only physical but emotional. He looked at them one by one, trying to understand what they truly meant. The mirror was cold in his hand. Its surface was cracked, but it still reflected light. When he looked into it, he saw pieces of his past, his childhood home, the people he had loved, the mistakes he had made. The mirror showed him everything he had once been. It reminded him of who he used to be, both the good and the bad. There was comfort in those memories, but also pain. He had spent many years thinking about what he had lost. He had carried guilt like a shadow. The mirror offered him the chance to return to those memories, to live in them, to stay close to what was familiar. But Thomas knew that the past could not be changed. It could only be remembered. And he had remembered enough. He placed the mirror gently on the ground. Then he looked at the watch. It was small and silver, and it ticked softly in his palm. The sound was steady, like a heartbeat. The watch reminded him of the present moment. It told him that time was always moving, that every second mattered. When he held it, he felt the pressure of now, the choices he had to make, the things he had to face. The present was real. It was where life happened. But it was also full of noise, full of weight. Thomas had spent too long trying to fix everything around him. He had tried to be strong, to be right, to be enough. But the present had become a cage. It held him in place, afraid to move forward, afraid to let go. He set the watch beside the mirror. Finally, he looked at the stone. It was smooth and dark, with no marks or signs. It felt warm in his hand, even in the cool morning air. The stone said nothing. It showed nothing. But it felt solid. It felt honest. It did not ask him to remember or to act. It simply existed. The stone was the future, unknown, unwritten, open. It was a path without a map. It was a door without a key. It was a question without an answer. And yet, it felt right. Thomas had spent too long looking back, too long standing still. He was tired of fear. He was ready for something new. He closed his hand around the stone. He looked up. The three strangers still stood at their roads. Mary Ann's eyes were soft, full of understanding. Edgar's gaze was steady, full of truth. Leo's face was still and unreadable. Thomas turned toward the eastern path, the one Leo guarded. He took a deep breath. His heart beat slowly, but clearly. He stepped forward. As he moved, Leo nodded once. It was a small gesture, but it felt important. Then Leo disappeared, like mist in the morning sun. He did not walk away. He simply faded, as if he had never been there at all. Thomas walked forward. The road ahead was quiet. It stretched into the unknown, with no signs, no promises, no end in sight. But he did not stop. He did not look back. He carried only the stone in his hand and a quiet hope in his heart. He did not know what waited for him. He did not know who he would become. But he knew this. He had made a choice. Not out of fear, not out of regret, but out of courage. He had chosen to move forward. He had chosen to live. And the crossroads, now empty and still, watched him go. Chapter 6. The Passage. Thomas Gray walked slowly along the eastern road. The stone he had chosen rested in his coat pocket, warm against his side. The path ahead was quiet. There were no trees, no birds, no wind. The sky above was pale and still, without sun or stars. It felt like a place between worlds, a space untouched by time. Yet Thomas did not feel lost. He felt calm. Each step he took felt lighter than the one before. His boots no longer dragged. His shoulders no longer bent under invisible weight. He had carried many things for many years: regret, guilt, fear. Now, with every step, those things began to fade. Not disappear completely, but soften. They no longer controlled him. They no longer whispered in his ear. The road was empty, but it was not cold. It was quiet, but not lonely. Thomas felt as if the silence was listening to him, not ignoring him. He did not know where the path led, but he trusted it. He had made his choice. He had let go of the past. He had stepped away from the present. He had chosen the unknown, and the unknown had welcomed him. As he walked, his thoughts became clearer. He remembered things without pain. He saw his life not as a list of mistakes, but as a journey. He had loved. He had failed. He had searched. And now, he was walking towards something new. He did not need to name it. He only needed to keep walking. He thought about the crossroads. About Mary Ann's gentle sadness, Edgar's sharp truth, and Leo's silent freedom. Each of them had shown him a part of himself. Each of them had asked him to choose. Not with words, but with presence. Thomas had listened. He had looked inside himself. And he had answered. The path did not change. It stayed straight and smooth. But Thomas changed. His breath grew steady. His heart beat with quiet strength. He no longer looked back. He no longer asked what might have been. He no longer feared what might come. He walked with peace. He did not know how long he had been walking. Time felt different here. It did not rush. It did not pull. It simply moved with him. He did not count the hours. He did not measure the distance. He only felt the passage, not of space, but of self. At one point, he stopped and looked around. There was nothing to see. No signs, no landmarks. But he felt something shift inside him. A small voice, quiet and true, said that he was no longer the man who had arrived at the crossroads. He was someone else now. Not perfect, not finished, but free. He smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. He had not chosen the easiest road. He had chosen the honest one. The one that asked him to face himself, to let go, to begin again. And so Thomas Gray walked on, into the quiet light of the eastern road, carrying only the stone and the strength he had found. Chapter 7. Resolution. Years passed, and the crossroads remained quiet. The fog still came and went with the seasons. The roads still stretched into the hills, untouched and unchanged. Locals in County Kerry sometimes spoke of the place, but only in whispers. They said it was strange, that it felt different from other roads. Some avoided it. Others visited it once and never returned. But no one forgot the story of the traveler who vanished there. They called him Thomas Gray. Some said he had become a spirit of the road, walking forever between worlds. Others believed he had found a hidden land, a place beyond time, where the tired could rest and the lost could begin again. A few claimed they had seen him in dreams, standing at the crossroads, holding a stone and smiling. But no one knew for sure. No one had proof. Only silence remained. But the truth was simpler. Thomas had made a choice. He had arrived at the crossroads tired and broken. He had faced 3 paths, each guarded by a stranger. He had looked into his past, felt the weight of the present, and stepped into the unknown. He had not run. He had not hidden. He had walked forward. And in that choice, he had found himself. The Eastern Road had no end, but it had purpose. It did not promise comfort, but it offered truth. Thomas had walked it with quiet steps, carrying only a stone and the lessons he had learned. He had let go of guilt. He had accepted silence. He had chosen freedom. He did not become a legend. He did not become a ghost. He became a man who understood that life is not about perfect answers. It is about honest choices. He had once feared change. He had once clung to memory. But the crossroads had taught him that holding on too tightly can keep you from growing. That sometimes, the only way forward is to release what weighs you down. Thomas Gray had walked into the unknown, not because he was brave, but because he was ready. And that was enough. The crossroads remained, waiting for others. It did not speak. It did not move. But it watched. It listened. It offered the same quiet trial to anyone who arrived. A test not of strength, but of truth. And somewhere, beyond the fog and the hills, Thomas walked still. Not lost. Not afraid. Just free. Moral: the true path is not always clear. Sometimes, to find yourself, you must let go of the past, accept the unknown, and step into silence. Choice is not fear. It is freedom. Thank you for your attention. If you like the story, please like and subscribe. It motivates us to make new videos and helps us promote the channel. Thank you.